This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
I changed up the cadence there.
You did. I did.
Kind of
I always
quickened
notice.
it up
I always
because
notice.
This is not the Primetime Podcast. You're probably like, guys, when I hear you guys talk, it is on the Primetime Podcast. It's not the Primetime Podcast. I hear different music under Ricky, which is weird. I haven't heard this since Behind the Pen. However, we're using it anyways. And this is an interesting thing because this is kind of a trial run for something that me and you have talked about doing this upcoming baseball season. Is you're a baseball fan. I love my baseball. I love my Cubbies. And what we were going to try to do this year, every week after the Primetime Podcast, do one kind of MVP topic that would be baseball. Not a baseball podcast, but a weekly one topic thing that could be the biggest news for baseball because we love that sport here between us too. But this news kind of fell into our laps. So we're doing kind of a trial run with how this would work. And basically, Andrew McCutchen is now a Giant. And I screwed that name up. Andrew McCutchen. I don't know why I screwed up his name.
Andrew McCutchen.
Well, it's because I'm looking right here. I looked on my screen. I saw Tim Kirkchin, ESPN. And it got me. I almost said Andrew Kirkchin, and that would not have been correct. But McCutchen traded from the Pirates to the Giants. On YouTube, we're asking, have they stolen the offseason? What do you think, Brandon? What does this mean for the Giants, and have they just stolen the baseball offseason?
Yeah, I thought they had done it when they had gotten Evan Longoria. And now they got Evan Longoria and Andrew McCutchen. So what the Giants have done is they have... do you think it's safe to say that the Giants have gone all in now on 2018? They've gotten Longoria. They've gotten McCutchen. Are they all in on 2018 now?
Well, I mean, they are... I look at this as not necessarily an all-in because I think they're always all-in, but I definitely now see this as, I know two players don't change an entire season, but when we make our predictions for next baseball season, I might put the Giants at the either top wild card spot or overtaking the Diamondbacks now for the NL West.
The only reason...
No, the Dodgers are there, so they wouldn't overtake that.
The only reason that I ask you, are they all in, is because of how poorly they played last season.
Well, they have to be.
Nothing went their way, and that's not like them. That's not like them. That was such a debacle, it seemed like, there for San Francisco, because nothing would go right. Everything went wrong. This guy got injured. Wasn't even related to baseball. This guy can't hit. This guy can't hit. And then they end up being one of the worst teams in baseball. And that's why I asked the question, are they all in? Because they are making sure everyone forgets about last season. And they say, screw it, we are going after this season. And we are putting a stranglehold on it from the beginning before pitchers and catchers even report.
I'll be honest. I think the Giants have had to do something like this. And I'm shocked that they've gotten Andrew McCutchen because even you and I, when Garrett Cole was traded, it's like, is it a fire sale in Pittsburgh? Which I'm happy with, being a Cub fan. Get them out of the NL Central so I don't have to worry about them, even though they finished 17 games behind us last year. However, the thing that I look at now is, because you've gotten those two guys, I feel like the Giants had to make a move like this, had to get a Longoria, had to get an Andrew McCutchen, because when you look at, I'm basing this off of last year, but let's go through each of the NL divisions really quick. We'll start with the Central, right, being here in Chicago. Cubs, I don't think, miss a beat. Cardinals and Brewers, I think those will be interesting teams because those will be probably the only two that either give the Cubs a run for their money if the Cubs have a season like they did this year, where for most of it we were like, oh, is this the same Cubs team that we're seeing? If they go back to 2016, you're not going to catch them. And then you've got the Pirates and the Reds down in the bottom now, especially after the Pirates make the Cole and McCutchen move. The Reds, I just don't think, are doing anything to make sure they get back out of the cellar. Central, stay put. The East, Marlins.
Before we do that, before we go there, is with them trading these two guys, with them getting rid of McCutchen, with them getting rid of Garrett Cole, they're saving themselves about $20 million. So they have now that $20 million free. And when I look on Twitter, and after the tweet, it was confirmed by Andrew Baggerly on Twitter, confirmed that Brian Reynolds, an outfielder, and Kyle Crick, a right-handed pitcher for the Giants, are going to Pittsburgh. Doesn't look like there's any money changing hands in the deal, but those two prospects are going to Pittsburgh. There's someone on Twitter within that then thread that says, will the Pirates use the $20 million saved between the trades of McCutchen and Cole to go after a pitcher? Because now their best pitcher in the rotation is Jameson Taillon.
Yeah.
And are they going to go for an Arrieta? Are they going to go for a Lynn? Are they going to try and get somebody like that to come in? Okay, we have this money. We can throw it at you now. The Cubs aren't doing it. We will do it. We want you to come over here and be our ace pitcher. Could they be doing that? They've saved the money. They've got the money.
They could, but let's say Arrieta, I'll use him as the example because you and I have talked about him off microphone plenty of times as a Cub fan. If you want to overpay for him, go ahead. Go ahead. Throw money at him. I will sit here. I will wait until no one does so, and then I'll be like, here's your offer. You want to play this season? Here's your offer. That's what I would do. I would not, like, as a Cub fan, overpay for him because Arrieta alone is not going to win you the division. You just lost Andrew McCutchen, your best position player on your team. The guy that usually leads your team in most batting statistics, and a commander there, just a center fielder, basically. A guy that's going to call people off and run your outfield. He's gone. He's now in San Francisco. So I don't think the Pirates can do anything with that $20 million that's going to bring them back into a wild card spot. And the thing that I was going to get to is you look at the East. The Nationals, I think they're in a good spot. The Marlins are fire sale. They'll be at the bottom. The Mets, are they going to come back up? The Phillies are in the dumpster. The Braves have a young team, so I could see them getting to maybe second in this division, but will it be enough for a wild card spot? Then I look at the West. The Dodgers, arguably the best team in baseball roster-wise. You have the Diamondbacks, who are on the up and up. You have the Rockies that are on the up and up. And then you got the Padres, who are the Padres. So if you're the Giants, you got to be sitting there going, do I want to follow those other three teams and go back up there, or do I want to hang out with the Padres down here? The odds are you don't want to hang around with the Padres. No one wants to hang. The Padres are like the Browns of baseball.
The Padres don't want to hang around with the Padres.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on. But I mean, that's why the Giants had to make this move, because of how competitive their own division is. I mean, they've got the best team in baseball, arguably, the team that just beat us after we beat them in the NL Central. I'll put my hat on it that we'll probably see Cubs and Dodgers again in the NLCS this upcoming year. But with how good the Diamondbacks are, how good the Rockies were this past season, the Giants have had to make moves like this to compete with those teams in their division to either get a wild card spot or maybe challenge the Dodgers for the division.
So let's take a look at then what the projected outfield, infield will look like for the San Francisco Giants. Okay. So starting out in the outfield, left field, Jarrett Parker most likely. Center field will now be Andrew McCutchen. Right field, Hunter Pence. Third base, Evan Longoria. Shortstop, Brandon Crawford. Second base, Joe Panik. First base, Brandon Belt. Catcher, Posey. And then obviously the rotation led off by Madison Bumgarner. That's a pretty darn good outfield. And then when you put that into a starting lineup, I'm not sure yet where Longoria, McCutchen are going to be inserted, but just to know that they're going to be inserted, that's huge. Those guys, that makes Gorkys Hernandez was your center fielder last year. McCutchen is going to, when you look at what Hernandez ended with, I think he ended up batting .238. McCutchen's going to be many points beyond .238, and he's going to bring you a whole lot of statistics to the outfield that Gorkys Hernandez, no disrespect to him, Gorkys Hernandez, Andrew McCutchen, you're going to take McCutchen. Yeah. So I think that's going to shore up another position in center field. In your outfield, you now have, I know Hunter Pence is getting a little long in the tooth. And someone could arguably say that McCutchen is too, but You have McCutchen, you have Pence, you have experience there, and then you've got Jared Parker, a little bit of a younger guy out in left field. This is going to be a pretty darn good outfield for the San Francisco Giants. Your infield is already solid. Your catcher is solid. And with a healthy Madison Bumgarner and a healthy rotation, you're looking pretty good, especially with your top 3.
Let me ask you this, and I only bring this up because you mentioned Hunter Pence. What's the chances of, maybe not all the time, but what you can do now that McCutchen will be in center fielder and be your lockdown center fielder, maybe if there are games where it's like, you know what, Pence is struggling here, or you know what, we're going to go with someone else for this game, what's there to say they don't run an outfield, let's say, where it's Parker in left, McCutchen in center, and then Hernandez in right field, where I know that Gorky's is a left fielder. I know playing the right field's a different beast, and especially with that park. Like San Francisco, to me, each park has their own atmosphere. Yeah. For example, in Wrigley, my favorite team, the Cubs, playing right field is a completely different monster than left field, because in right field, you have that kind of corner that players can hit the ball into. Then you have that dip in our stadium. Whereas in San Francisco, the left field, you're dealing with that short wall behind you where the cars are. And then you basically have in right field, you're dealing with a big right field where the brick and the fences are out there.
So you're playing it a lot differently.
It's totally different.
Oh, yeah.
It's so much more open in their right field. But what do you think that maybe they can do that? Like you mentioned Hunter Pence. What if it's like, okay, for this game, Gorky's is going to go out there and be our right fielder for this one. It's Parker, McCutchen, then Gorky's Hernandez.
They might be able to do that, and that's maybe something that they have to start doing, because I think that, I mean, Hunter Pence has been playing for a very long time. Yeah. I still remember Hunter Pence very well with the Astros when the Astros were in the National League. So that's something that you look at and you go, you're going to probably have to think about giving Hunter Pence a couple more days off than you have been in the past. So to have that other outfielder out there that you know McCutchen is in center field. You can then play around with things a little bit. So I think that you're right when you say that. You're able to do that type of thing, and it's because you've brought McCutchen into the fold.
Well, and the one thing that I was going to mention before you brought up the Hunter Pence thing that just kind of sparked that in my mind, the thing I like about this now is this isn't really a McCutchen thing. This is a Longoria thing. Now that you have Longoria, the one guy that you can then take some pressure off of, because, I mean, looking at his numbers, a 220 average, on-base percentage of 265, slugging percentage was really good, but the average was really low, was Pablo Sandoval. Now you don't have to rely on Pablo Sandoval being possibly your everyday third baseman, and could use him as either in National League situations, he's our first pinch hitter off the bench when we need someone to go to when the pitcher spot comes up, or he could be, hey, we're in an American League stadium today, Pablo's our DH. Like, it gives you that flexibility now that you can throw Longoria out there at third base and not necessarily have to have Sandoval out there.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know how much longer Pablo Sandoval has. That's one of my things.
He's been here since I was a senior in high school.
But I think that's another reason why you take a look at that and you say, Evan Longoria, that just made so much sense. Because before that, that's who you have at third base. You have Pablo Sandoval. Yeah. And there was a time where the Panda was fun. And people went, goo goo gaga over him because they were able to play with that name, and he was a good player there. Yep. And then he left and he went to Boston and he dealt with injuries and that big contract he got, and it was just not good. And Boston quickly saw that this guy is just not, he's just not going to work out for us. And then San Francisco was able to give him that contract to come back and play for them. But now that Longoria is there, I think that this is Pablo Sandoval kind of being faded out. And I don't want to say rightfully so, but most likely that's what's going to happen. And Sandoval's he's just at a different point right now, and Evan Longoria is a stronger player. He's going to bring more for you at third base and with the stick than Pablo Sandoval is going to be able to do. The Giants have really put themselves in a good position. I don't want to right now say, I know that it's a very premature thing to say, but with the addition of Evan Longoria, with the addition of Andrew McCutchen, with the health of the starting rotation, and the hope that they will be better than what they were last year, the Giants are positioning themselves to again be the number 2 team behind the Dodgers.
Really?
I'm just saying. If they're able to do that, and I know what the Diamondbacks did and will continue to do, but listen to this. If the Diamondbacks are unable to bring back J.D. Martinez, that's a huge loss.
Yep.
If they cannot bring back Martinez, they're losing how many home runs, how many RBIs, and the play in the outfield? That's huge. If they can't bring him back, I don't want to say that the Diamondbacks are dipping and falling, but they're dipping. Maybe not falling, they're dipping. The Rockies, they're going to hold right there, but then what's their situation in Carlos Gonzalez and everything there? I think that's another situation that you look at and you go, okay, when the season gets started, I want to see where are all these guys at? Where are all these guys signed at? The Giants, with the 2 signs, the trades that they made to get Longoria, to get McCutchen, they have planted themselves in a solid spot. I'm not putting them in the basement. I'm not putting them after the Padres. The Giants have jumped up. And again, this is me being premature. This is me being a little Ricky Widmer-esque.
Okay.
And a little flavor of the weeky. I saw 2 things. Crown them. Let me give you my crown. I mean, that's how I feel right now. But those are, you just got Evan Longoria, one of the biggest names in the AL East, to come and be on your team, and you got Andrew McCutchen, one of the biggest names in the NL Central, to come and be on your team. I mean, the next thing you could have done, and you weren't able to, was bring in Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, that if they would have been able to do that, they would have been out of money, but they also would have been the favorite to win it all.
There are 3 teams both of these moves, the McCutchen move puts even more pressure on there. There's 3 teams this puts pressure on. First off, we mentioned the Rockies. We were the last wild card team. We were 3rd in the West. I think if there's any team the Giants overtake, it's the Rockies. Right now, I'm not going to overreact. I'm still going to say Dodgers 1, Diamondbacks at 2. However, it was only 6 games between the D-backs and the Rockies in the standings. However, this also has implications on other divisions. And the East, to me, I'm not impressed by the East. How I look at the East right now in January is the Nationals will probably win the division. The Braves will maybe if they're kind of my dark horse. Not dark horse to win anything, but just dark horse because of how young they are. And they have one of my favorite prospects in Dansby Swanson on that team. No relation to Brandon Swanson. Just wanted to make that clear for everyone at home that you have no relation to Dansby Swanson. But they're a team, I think, because of the Marlins basically fire sailing and the Phillies and the Mets where they are. I think the Braves could be second in the East this year. But the 2 teams that this puts pressure on outside the West, the Brewers and the Cardinals. Because the Brewers and the Cardinals, I don't think will catch the Cubs. I think the Cubs are NL Central champions for quite some time. Even when they struggle, they win the division. And the Brewers and the Cardinals, it'll be interesting to see if now this trade makes the Brewers, like the Brewers were one of the teams that people are talking about, could go after Jake Arrieta. Do either the Brewers or the Cardinals now make a move that they might not necessarily have made, but now feel they have to because this could affect their wild card chances this season?
Well, this puts the pressure on other teams. This puts the pressure on other teams, and this puts the pressure on teams for maybe not now here at the beginning of the season, but when we're looking at trade deadline, we're looking at trade deadline, and teams that maybe would say, you know what, we're going to wait for right now. That makes teams be a little bit more aggressive, especially if the Giants come in and they are playing really well because of the Longoria deal, because of the McCutchen deal, and because of the guys that they already had there on their team. So if they're able to do that, if the Giants come out and they're just red hot out of the gate in the first couple of months, April, May, and maybe a little bit into June as well, another team's going to be looking at that going, we're trying to make a run too. We feel like we have some pieces, but we need to be able to add another one. That's going to force their hand to be able to keep up, because they may not even be in the Giants division, but they may be knowing that they're going to be competing with the Giants for that wild card spot, like you said. So it makes a lot of sense, and it's so interesting how what one team does all the way over here has an impact on what another team does all the way over here on another side in a completely different division at a completely different spot. But it has all those teams thinking. So I think it is important to note that, especially for trade deadline time, that other teams could be looking at the Giants and saying, hey, this worked out really well for them. They made a splash. We need to go out there. We need to make a splash of our own.
There are two position players to look at, I believe. And this isn't a trade this offseason. This is like off-season then into the actual season. Two guys, they're both on the Marlins. One's an outfielder, and it's Christian Yelich. The other one's Starlin Castro.
Yeah.
I think that those are two guys, based on what Derek Jeter's doing. Also, you can kind of throw in Remuto. I always screw that name up. The catcher in Miami.
Real
Muto. Look at him, too, because those are three. I know that Yelich and Realmuto, JT basically, they're names that have been linked to trades, but there could be offers now. Now that McCutchen may not be on the market anymore, look for teams who, I know Yelich is listed as right fielder on the depth chart, could play center field for a team, and Starlin Castro has made it clear that he does not play for does not want to play for the Miami Marlins. He doesn't want to do a rebuilding team anymore. But before we wrap this thing up, any final thoughts on the trade in general and the Giants and the rest of the MLB?
I think that on both sides, it's a good trade for both teams at the end of the day, because how long had we been hearing the possibilities of Andrew McCutchen going somewhere else? This past trade line, the trade deadline before that, his name was thrown out there. So obviously, people within the Pirates organization were looking at possibly being able to give him up. Not give him up, but get rid of him, bring in some younger talent, bring in some other needs for their team, which the Pirates, they need a lot of different things. At times they've shown that they can be really good. They've competed well. They've played well against the Cubs recently. Actually, as of even just 2 years ago, where the Cubs were, we all know what they did. So the Pirates are trying to get there, and they're trying to reshape things, obviously by getting rid of Cole and getting rid of McCutchen.
Can I ask you a small question about McCutchen real quick when it comes to the Pirates? Contract year was going to be this year. Do you think they should have gotten rid of him at this point, or could they have hung on to him by the trade deadline and got more at the trade deadline, or would they have gotten less at the trade deadline?
I think that with them making the trade right now, I think it's really good, because then they don't get to the trade deadline and look back and go,
we could have gotten more.
We could have gotten more at that point.
And you're committing to life after McCutchen now.
Exactly. And I think that it's a good move right now by Pittsburgh, because you could get to the trade deadline and everyone's at a different position than they are right now. At that point, maybe the Giants aren't willing to give up those guys. Maybe that they're looking at other teams and they feel like, they're not getting as much, but they still want to get something. So I think right now they do it, and then they know they can look back and they could go, oh, well, we could have gotten more, blah, blah, blah. But at least they're not at that point going, we should have just done it then. So they're not going to be able to question themselves, I don't think, as much. And especially because they had been talking about it. This isn't the first year. We just haven't been hearing about this over the last couple of months. It's been the last couple of years with Andrew McCutchen. So I think it's a good thing for the Pirates. They do free up a lot of money, whether that's to go after a guy like a Jake Arrieta, an Anthony Lynn from St. Louis. It is Anthony Lynn, right? Okay, I thought so. I didn't sound right, but I guess it is. And then for the Giants, I think that for them, it's a great move. It's a great move by them, adding to what they already had in Evan Longoria, getting Andrew McCutchen. I think that's absolutely great. I think they've positioned themselves for what looks to be a strong run in the NL West this season, and it really is good. They know that they needed to keep up against the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, and, of course, the Dodgers.
Well, and the big one is, I'm going to ask you this. I don't think it's Anthony Lynn, because I looked up Anthony Lynn, and he is the head coach of the Chargers. Are you thinking Lance Lynn?
Lance Lynn. That's who it is. Why Anthony Lynn?
Well, you said Anthony Lynn. I went, and I was like, no, that sounds like Anthony Lynn is with the Chargers coaching staff.
I knew it didn't sound right. I knew it didn't sound right. But then when you said you're like, I'm like, okay,
well, no,
I guess.
And then I said just so you can go on with your thought, because I didn't want you to derail your thought. And then I fact checked you here. Lance Lynn, I looked at his contract and I went, he's not under contract with the Cardinals anymore, so I'm assuming you meant
thanks, Tony
Lance
Reale.
Lynn,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got me all straight now.
Better to settle it out here than to have the Wild West of the comment section out there.
We'll still probably have the Wild West on something,
probably.
But I think that, again, it's a good trade on both sides because it was something inevitable that was going to happen with Pittsburgh, and it's something for San Francisco and the Giants that they look at and they go, we're after a really bad year last year. We're putting that behind us. We're all in on 2018.
Well, and this is where you guys come in. Little experimental is what we're doing here. I know this season, Brandon and I plan to do this. We're just kind of diving into it, see how we like it, see how you guys like it. That's the most important part. Tell us what you think down below in the comment section. But most important part, we are having a census. I didn't mention this at the beginning because this is new, and I was like, oh, crap, forgot to do the housekeeping at the beginning. Check out our survey. Tell us your feedback. Tell us what we could do better in 2018. That link down below in the description. I want to thank you guys for watching and or listening, and as always, have a good day, everybody.